Morning, Hanko and Lindani.
Morning, doctor. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How is South Africa?
It's very cold at the moment. Like very cold. There's a cold front going over, so it's incredibly cold.
No, it's equally cold here, eh?
Yo, I haven't
Yes,
had this cold in a long time.
really, eh? This is climate change, eh? You cannot predict. Today it is cold, the following day it's really hot.
Hot, yeah.
Yeah, it's unpredictable. Lindani, how are you? Mercy, Ked?
Good, thanks, and you, doctor.
How are you? Mercy, morning. So let's give the others some moment to plug in. Are the others planning to join, eh? Or it is too early for them to wake up?
Doctor, I don't know, but I think maybe we can continue. They can watch the recording.
Okay. Yes, because of time factor, eh? We cannot wait, for quite some minutes. So I realized that time is really flying. And, we have about 4 topics. That is the technological, advancements. Then we have the supply chain fragility. We have risk management. We also have, the finance and the services within the supply chain. But I think for the services, we've been mentioning quite a number of them. So we won't take much time. It will just be passing through the topics the same way we shall peruse through the technologies. Some of the technologies that are available, which can enhance efficiency and effectiveness along the supply chain. So I want us to take some few minutes just to walk through these technologies, and then we will move to supply chain fragility. So I hope that is okay.
That's fine, Doctor.
Yes, kindly just allow me to switch off the video. I'm in the office, and I think there'll be some movements behind to avoid the interruptions. Yes, so we want to go through some of the emerging technologies for supply chain management. And when you talk about emerging technologies, these are technologies that are currently developing, or maybe they are expected to be availed in the next few years. They're doing some testings and so on and so forth, but they are expected to be launched into the markets in the next 5 to 10 years. So, and for sure, we know that a lot has happened in the supply chain space. There's a lot of development. And because of that, we also experience competition. So there's a very tight competition between industries, between firms. So in order for these firms or the industry to remain competitive, so they must at least adopt some of these technologies, or they must have some knowledge regarding the emerging technologies. Otherwise, they will be left behind. So, and these technologies, of course, they help us to achieve a lot. Firms are able to achieve quite a lot when they adopt these technologies. So they'll change, of course, the way business is conducted. And this is because of automation, things can also be simplified, digitalized, and even information sharing becomes, simple and easy. So they change the way people do a business. People can be more innovative, can come up with innovative ideas, services, and products. So they also enhance efficiency and effectiveness. People are able to beat deadlines, meet the timelines as required. They are able to minimize on the costs. And again, information is more accurate and real time. And all along, we've been talking about information sharing, efficient information, and so on and so forth. And you remember we discussed about the bullwhip effect, which is primarily caused by the deficiency of information. So, and if these technologies are utilized, then information can be shared, accurate information, and of course, real time. Also, it is possible to achieve multiple goals. Farms, organizations have different goals to realize at the end of the day. So they are able to achieve these goals if they can utilize some of these technologies, and customer satisfaction, which is very, very paramount. So, and I know there are certain technologies, of course, which you are aware of. Others, maybe you've not heard about them. But, you know, because of information sharing again and availability of information, the technologies are available, and you've seen them even being advertised and so on and so forth. So we have got different technologies that can be applied at the different nodes of the supply chain. So if you look at the production node of the chain, there are certain technologies that farmers, producers can utilize to enhance their production, to enhance efficiency, to minimize on certain, of course, costs, and so on and so forth. We also have the manufacturing node of the supply chain. So manufacturers equally have a variety of technologies that they can utilize to increase, the production of these goods, the processing of these goods, to increase the efficiency, and even the logistics, and so on and so forth. We have wholesalers, retailers, and even customers. They equally use these technologies as they scout around for the products. They are able to utilize some of the technologies. They also want to trace these products to the sources, understand even the contents of these products, and many other things. So these technologies are not just applicable maybe at the production or manufacturing, but across the chain. All these actors require the technology. So maybe if we can just engage in a little bit of discussion, can you mention some of the technologies that you think are widely used by producers, some of the emerging technologies? That are currently used by producers?
Doctor, I think if we take the conversation back in a few weeks when we all did the technologies that are utilized in the supply chain, we'll remember that many of the groups discuss topics like in terms of the traceability systems, in terms of RFID tags and blockchain technology and so on. And basically producers just use technology that can either assist them in production or that can assist them in inventory management, as we discussed in the previous discussion, or technology that helps them, monitor their stocks and so on. So some of the technologies as simple as just geo-tracking tags that they can keep track of where their animals are their animals healthy? I know many of the feedlots are currently moving towards that because it also tells the people if the animal has a fever or not, how many times has it drunk water, how many times has it walked around in the allocated pen. A lot more farmers are starting to adopt more and more technology. I mean, if we look at the crop production space, there's a lot of farmers making use of drone technology, not only, to go up and give them like a geothermal image so that they can see which trees are currently in distress or not, and For others, it's as simple as just sending a drone to check how many cattle they have in the allocated space, if everything is fine, and to check their property for safety and so on. So I mean, those are just some basic examples.
Thank you very much, Hanko. Yes, we have quite a number of them. You mentioned a few. And I think these technologies have really made work easier. I remember, was it the other month when I was in Germany and we visited one of the private dairy farms. And we saw the way technology is utilized to manage almost all activities. So it manages almost all the operations. So they have automated all the operations, and just the way you've mentioned it, so that they can be able to tell the quantity of feeds, fed by the different animals, the amount of water taken, even to check even their health status, and so on and so forth. And that limits even the number of employees at the end of the day. So they have just 2 or 3 people to manage hundreds of, dairy animals. And you've also talked about drone. Drone, we know how it is used and the way it is used, monitoring, even production, spraying, and so on and so forth. Any other technology that maybe you are aware of? Any technology that farmers use during production?
Doctor, another big one that the guys that are planting are using the GPS and now self-driving tractors to ensure maximum efficiency of planting of fields.
Pardon, just be loud enough. I didn't get you.
Doctor, the farmers that are planting now are using GPS, which then self-drives the tractor to ensure maximum efficiency of planting of a field.
They use the GPS to enhance efficiency as they work on the fields.
Also, we have like remote sensing technologies, like the water sensors, the weather sensors, and the soil sensors. Where they like in the water sensors, it aids in the moisture content, like it takes the values and then they are able to like so the water is used efficiently. Also, like the soil sensors, they'll know the nutrients in the soil. It's the topic I'm working on. So we were just saying, and then there's this company in Kenya, the Cinefa. It's distributing that technology, and it's like a new project or something.
Now that is quite interesting, because we are developing a hydroponic that uses sensors, such that in case there is a depletion of the nutrients, just raises an alarm, and you can be able to replenish, and also monitors the moisture content and many others.
Doctor, I also have submission.
Yes.
Good morning, doctor, and good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Yes, in my country, I have observed we have a project called the Agricultural Cluster Development Project. These guys developed an application that farmers can use, order inputs online. But that technology, it has accredited input dealers that these farmers could easily access inputs at a subsidized price. And then still, there's also another application that has been developed that farmers use them to diagnose, to do the pest and disease diagnosis. A farmer just opens the application, and maybe in case there is an incidence or severity of pests and diseases, it just takes the picture, and the application automatically gives the causes and recommends the remedy that the farmer can easily use. And then there is also this other one. I'm forgetting its name very well. It is more of like it is usually used in soil testing labs. You just go and pick, in case maybe the farmer wants to apply fertilizer and is not very sure. The farmer just picks samples depending on the method that he or she is using. So those samples are picked from the field and then taken. The samples are just poured onto the machine, and the machine will just do its analysis, and then to communicate that this soil is deficient with this nutrient. So maybe the required amount of the nutrient that you can apply to the garden. I think that's the one for production.
So there's quite a lot,
Yes.
that has emerged, and of course others are still emerging. But at the end of the day, we find that production has become more efficient and effective. And right now, we find that there's a lot of losses that can be reduced, minimized, simply by using these technologies. Also driving down the costs. Producers are able to drive down the cost. And we know that production costs sometimes, can really increase even the cost of the product at the end of the day. And increasing productivity, they are able to increase their productivity. They are able to harvest more, from an acreage, or even get more milk from one cow and many others, because they are able to monitor even diseases. You've talked about diagnosing pests and diseases, and also testing the soil fertility, so that they identify the nutrients that are deficient early enough and address the soil in time. What about manufacturing?
I think manufacturing, there is a fruit factory in my place. These guys went and purchased a processing plant that I think it has all vital points for mixing, packing, and even labeling the product. So it has cut a lot of costs in relation to human labor.
So again, the pros and cons of these technologies, of course they are good, but we find people again losing their jobs, because of some of these emerging technologies.
That's true.
The robots, right now, robots can do virtually everything. Soon we'll just be ordering the robots to prepare for us meals and cook for us and serve us. You don't need to employ a house help. You just sit around and you order a robot and will do everything. And even in the manufacturing industries, don't you think robots are highly used, especially developed countries?
Yeah, they're there. Like now, the Tesla company, find that it's not nearly robots that are assembling cars. They are no human being.
They are no human being. So, what is the future of our jobs?
But Doc, you find, I think, okay, as much as we are embracing this technology, I think it's not perfect. There is a way human brain that was made that the AI or the robots might not have. So I believe I'm seeing the future going upside down, because the advantages of technology, I think they're also going to reach a particular point. They also reach climax, and there is no way we shall hope to go back manual.
So it will reach a point that these things will break down and will revert to the manual way of doing things, eh?
Yes.
Any other technologies that the manufacturers have adopted? Manufacturers, especially these large farms?
Prof, I don't know whether this is valid, but you realize, especially maybe like the flower farms, they have those very big chiller, are they called chillers or coolers that are able to sustain or maintain the flower cuttings like in a fresh form. And you realize that they also have different compartments. For example, the ones that have just been harvested have a specific compartments that they are placed. Then the ones that are almost going out, like being sent out, also have different compartments, and those compartments have different temperatures. So that has been employed in different farms. For example, in Uganda, we have the Wagagai. Wagagai has lots of those chillers. Also, I think exclusive, I think even in Kenya, because they are doing a lot of flower business. So I don't know whether that applies, but yeah, it's been employed in lots of such farms. Though they
Yes,
are
I've seen them. I know they're there.
Yes, it's quite costly, but those farms that are quite big and can afford have really taken up such technology.
Yes,
Also,
and
Dr.
they are able to manage these products and the inventory. Yes.
Also, like when we were doing traceability, when we say that the use of blockchain technology, like those cannot be used. I think it's under manufacturing, right? Use traceability and for authentication, where they have like this like the KTDA. They implemented that by use of this kind of the tea packaging and the consumer, so like it can be traced back.
Yes, so we find that data is decentralized, and it allows people to safely access the data and even share the data, and that data can be used even for traceability and even transparency along the supply chain. So blockchain is also another technology that has been widely used, especially in inventory management and logistics.
Doc, there's
Yes?
another one called nanotechnology. It's used in food processing industries to dictate the amount of pathogens, chemicals, pesticides within these foods before they process them. Especially
yes,
fruits.
Nanotechnology. I think it's a recent one, eh?
Yeah.
It's a recent technology that is now widely being discussed. Any conference or you attend, the nanotechnology discussions must feature. What about the wholesalers, the retailers, the consumers?
Right.
So how do they increase, their service levels or even build customer loyalty? Are there certain technologies that maybe they also adopted?
Yes, Doc. When there is a company in Uganda called Jumia. Jumia had to find ways of trying to get in touch with its customers. So they developed an online actually website that the customers can order they can place their orders from wherever they are, and then the orders are actually distributed. Then there are also other supermarkets that I've seen that have tried to at least install some of the accounting softwares that they can easily actually also these softwares are much connected to the identification kind of technologies for purposes of billing, because you can have a long queue of customers, but in case you did some kind of I don't know what kind of technologies that they put some just putting barcodes onto the product. So when it comes to because there are people who come to the supermarkets want to buy things quickly, but if they find long queues, so that customer may go elsewhere. So for the purposes of making everybody satisfied, so I think that such a technology is also improving the efficiency in terms of service.
I think I saw it in South Africa, where a customer, can just scan through the products and then make payment. You don't have to go through the teller for these products to be scanned through and make payments. So
Yes.
there are certain points whereby you can just go, scan through, and then it will give you the total amount. You make payment, you pack your stuff, and you leave. And I found it interesting, I think it was in Sandton, Sandton.
Actually, doctor, there is also there is a prominent supermarket here, Pick and Pay. These guys have invented the use of smart shopper cards. Now there are customers that might not have enough money, but now the smart shopper card, given the offers they have, you can get products at a discount, and that proves on the brand reality of people going to that place.
So I think South Africa is a bit advanced. It's more advanced, compared to some of these African countries,
Yeah.
Yes, you talk about Jumia. We also have the Jumia, where you can just place an order, and they will deliver whatever product you desire, irrespective of where you are located. And of course, there are varieties whereby you can be able to select from those varieties and get whatever you want. We also have smart housing, how to manage the inventory in these warehouses. So that is also widely used. Customers, final consumers, are there any emerging technologies?
So, Doctor, another thing that's been happening quite frequently is that wholesalers and retailers are also expanding the adoption of social media to obviously attract their customers, especially now. For example, you frequently get adverts of Checker 6060 on the TVs, or on your phone, you quickly see, oh, Pick and Pay delivery or this or this. So they're also trying to reach the younger generation through social media. And I think, especially when it comes to consumers now, we spoke about RFID tags not too long ago and barcodes and so on. And we spoke about how consumers have also become more conscientious of what they buy. And that's why there was that need for the traceability systems, so that consumers could just end up scanning the barcode and it will inform them where the product is from, how was the product produced. It will tell them whether or not they meet certain requirements and regulations with regards to the use, for example, of hormones or not, or for example, if it's produced so that it's vegan friendly and stuff like that. So I think in terms of that, that's majority of what the consumers actually will utilize.
Yes, you can be able to scan, the products and access more information regarding the products. And at the end of the day, it gives you some assurance whether the product is, safe for consumption and many other things. We know that the current customers are very cautious, what they eat, what they take. So they want to get more details. It's not just about picking a product, from the shelf and paying for the product, but then they want to get more information, detailed information about these products. Now, is GMO, does it fall under these emerging technologies? Genetically modified organisms.
Dr. GMOs have been around for a very long time. If you have a look at most maize or corn crops have been Roundup Ready 1 from the early 90s, even the late 80s. So the genetically modifying of crops has actually been around for about 30 years already. So I don't know if you can call it an emerging technology anymore.
Now, again, these emerging technologies, they are relative depending on where you are coming from. There are certain technologies. Let me give an example of South Africa and maybe even Kenya or Uganda. There are certain technologies that have been in existence in South Africa, and currently they are, kind of being embraced in Kenya or in Uganda or even Tanzania. So for the Kenyan or Ugandan case, these are kind of emerging in the local space. But in other places, they have been there for quite a while.
I think, Doc, what you've said is very true, because when you look at in Uganda, the government, previously I grew up knowing that cassava is a perennial crop in Uganda. But over time, there's so many technologies. I don't know, I think it is within genetic engineering. Now, since they have realized that 70% of the population regard cassava as a staple food crop. But due to these adverse impacts of climate change, so now the government was like, we should find ways of trying to stop making cassava a perennial crop that you grow and harvest maybe after 1 year. But as we speak today, we have cassava. I have cassava actually in the garden, which is for 7 months. Then there is another one which is for 6 months. So you find these are all things that I think that are trying to boost production for the purposes of businesses that are engaging into this kind of or maybe seed multiplication or just cassava flour production. So I think GMOs in the context of in Uganda, it is an emerging technology.
You've talked of cassava, and I've just eaten cassava this morning, and actually from Uganda.
And it's sweet, I know. It's tasty.
It's very tasty, and I even told the person that I need some cuttings, cassava cuttings, because the one that I've eaten is a bit different from the ones that I eaten previously. So it means this is the modified one,
I think, yeah, that is it.
Yes. So they could be emerging in other areas, but in other spaces, they have been there for quite a while. So I just identified a few. Of course, we've talked about the use of drones. So you can use drones, to spray, fertilizers and apply fertilizers and even apply pesticides and even monitor these crops as they grow, be able to identify the diseases and pests and so on. So you don't have to manually walk around 20 acres, piece of land, trying to do all this, or employ people to do for you the work. So with the drones, you're able to do quite a lot, and you will minimize on cost, And I think also in terms of even the time taken, you're able to take a shorter period of time. We also have modified tractors and machines. Of late, I see some tractors that really shock me. I don't know whether they are in South Africa but in Kenya, I think we have some emerging machines, tractors that are used for harvesting, some combined harvesters, others, they do multiple activities. Are they there in South Africa or Uganda?
In Uganda, yes.
Mm-hmm.
There is a rice farm. It's called Kibimba. Now those guys purchased that. There's a tractor they purchased that when it comes to cultivating, maybe like opening land, you just have to because maybe you already captured the GPS coordinates of the piece of land. It will ask you the time you want it to take to open that land, and after opening up the land, where do you expect it to go and park? So you just put in all those I think they're orders. Let me just put it. I think you just order it. So now you can even go and bathe, do your things. You can even go to the market. The tractor will keep opening land until it goes back to whatever settings that you put it.
Really?
Yes, in Kibimba.
Okay. That is interesting. Hanko, what about South Africa?
Doctor,
I know you
think
guys must be having more advanced.
So I think Kate mentioned earlier, a lot of our tractors at the moment have a lot of or at least the more modern tractors that are utilized are, they have quite a bit more technology to them, especially when it comes to inputting GPS coordinates. So you as a person don't even necessarily have to drive the tractor while it's going straight. You basically just have to turn the tractor when it gets to the end of the fields. In terms of, so we use GPS quite a lot. Yeah, other than that, that's basically the only thing I know of. I know most of our harvesting equipment, our tractors, our planters, they use that technology as well.
How accurate are these machines?
Well, a lot more, Doctor. This is one of the movements towards precision agriculture.
Yes, because again, smart or precision agriculture is one of the emerging technologies that farmers are trying to adopt because of climate change. So I think in Kenya, I am not aware of any farm that has introduced these machines. I don't know whether the ones I normally see around have those inbuilt systems. Yes.
I think I'm seeing here the use of drones, just like you said, for spraying and the likes, and maybe doing periodic crop health inspection. But in Uganda, over time, I've seen the rate at which more previously we farmers were been using knapsacks to spray. But this time around, we're having motorized knapsacks that you just mix. You mix the maybe the pesticide, just put it in the knapsack. Your work is just to press the trigger, and then as the small engine is running, it is running in the sense that you're already spraying. So these issues of using a lot of energy on a manual knapsack, when you're using a motorized knapsack, I think there is not a lot of energy, and it is very efficient. You can spray the garden within the shortest time possible.
So do you have to move it around?
Definitely, yes, you have to move it.
But then again, the contact with these chemicals, for drone, you're not in contact with these, chemicals as you spray. I don't know, what about these motor, machine?
Doctor, in terms of South Africa's farmers, especially the commercial guys, when they use their crop sprayers, the tractors, a lot of them have now also employed a see and spray technology from John Deere, which is AI, which specifically when they traveling over their crops, picks out the weeds and just sprays the pesticide and herbicide over that specific plant.
Mhm. Because again, people are very cautious on getting in contact with these chemicals and just trying to avoid them. I've seen in Kenya, we've had many cases of health cases, especially within the flower farms. Those who work within the flower farms, they are exposed to these chemicals because it's quite chemical intensive managing flowers. So, and because of these health issues, at some point I was thinking they need to come up with better technologies that can cushion these farmers or the workers from directly being exposed to the chemicals. So we have different tractors and modified tractors and machines, just as you have mentioned. Again, we have got new varieties, of seeds, crops, and animals, genetically modified ones, and many others, which of course have got other unique features. Others can adapt to certain climatic conditions. Productivity is high, resistance to pests and diseases, and people are now adopting these varieties. And as Geoffrey mentioned, that some of them are fast maturing, and I agree with you. I also knew cassava will take almost more than 1 year to mature, but nowadays 6 months you're told that cassava is ready, and that is because of these new varieties. So we have access to data. We know that there's a lot of data, voluminous data that has to be managed. And therefore, these data management tools and information management tools is again very important. We have got the internet, of things. Which other data management tools are you aware of? Any data management tool? Hello?
Doc, what about these accounting softwares? Because sometimes they keep, now when you look at these manufacturing industries that have all these automated processing systems, so they are just connected straight to some of these accounting software in the sense that we know how much has been produced, what batch has been dispatched. So I think these accounting softwares also try to capture this data for financial management purposes.
Yes, accounting, softwares, they're very good when it comes to managing those financial, data and information. Any other?
I don't know the name of the one used by Amazon, but it's a data warehousing tool. I think they call it like Redshift. I don't know the word, but they use for the delivery house and delivery stuff. Yeah.
Okay, which one is it? Who knows about the technology? The name? Maybe we can find out, eh?
Yeah, it's the Amazon Redshift.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
We have got the 5G technology, which improves connectivity, and therefore it enables management of large amount of data. We have got the cloud-based communication. Mhm.
Look, even Wi-Fi, even Wi-Fi today in my country, Wi-Fi was like a luxury. But since most of the farms that I know have tried to adopt to Wi-Fi technologies, especially some of them who have social media accounts, that some of these customers try to make orders the social media account. So I think for the purposes of improving connectivity, Wi-Fi is also among them.
Yes, Wi-Fi is also very important, and right now it has even penetrated to certain undeserved areas, such as the rural areas. You go to the rural, localities, and you find people accessing, internet and using internet. They have installed Wi-Fi even in their homes. So there are quite a number of even softwares, even some advanced supply chain management softwares that can be able even to track, to manage the inventory data and many others. Of course, we talked about the robots and how they have been utilized. We have got warehousing management systems, inventory optimization, so that you are able to balance your inventory. Remember, we discussed more on inventory management and the trade-offs. We have the Internet of Things, visualization tools. Some of the examples under these visualization tools. Who can give us an example of a visualization tool?
Is Power BI part of it? This one, Power BI, for mainly for analytics.
Pardon?
The tool itself, it's called Power BI.
Power BI, yeah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then another one is oftentimes I've been thinking that Kobo Collect is or survey solutions is usually for research institutions, but I've seen most of the companies now are trying to adopt these kinds of technologies, because at least they visualize to give them those kind of analytical trends to understand how much sales are they making, how much market share have they captured, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We also have other mobile applications, which can equally be utilized in even the management of information and trying to analyze some data that has been gathered. So all these, we also have the e-money card payments. So right now we've gone, cashless. So the transaction is been made easier, just using the cards and making payments. Amazon going cashless, also reducing human interaction. You can be able to place your orders and scout for whatever product you need. Even distribution and delivery. Nowadays, you even order food and it is delivered to your doorstep. You don't have to, move around trying to buy or purchase the food. You just place an order, make a phone call, or you place an order and they will drop it to your doorstep. But then these technologies, are they making people to be, laggards, or what's your take concerning these technologies? Because sometimes I find people now becoming more lazy and lazy because of these technologies, and we even stop thinking.
Doc, my take would be like there's one thing that technology can never do. It can never be creative. Even with all the installation and stuff, it lacks creativity because it will just process what it has been fed. And who feeds it this information? It's the human. So I think the best the humans can do is be more creative.
So
And then the other thing, doctor, just like you've said, yeah, people become so sluggish by the end of the day. Now imagine you're supposed to maybe use that time possible compared to agencies or maybe need maybe you want to cut time short. I think also body wise, also very healthy. But now the more we become sluggish, as humans, most of the other humans, I put quote in quote, they're also thinking better ways of taking advantage of this kind of technology. So I think now, like with this e-payment kind of technology, some people are thinking better ways to breach this kind of technology. And I believe, I think it's even happening because some people, I don't know how these guys do it, but there is a lot of unethical kind of things that happen here.
Yeah, so I think we need to strike a balance, But of course, these technologies can never be creative, It's us who command them, and therefore people still have to be creative and creative and develop new ways of doing things and even upgrade these technologies. And that's why you find that every now and then the technologies are upgraded. Good. Again, we talked about the traceability, technology, the use of barcodes, recycle technologies, mobile applications for easy, access to information, and that helps in reducing information asymmetry. Where is it? There were. It's in which country whereby they recycle the bottles, And I found it interesting, and I remember somebody was telling us a story that she attends most of the famous events, and makes a lot of money because as people, use these bottles, the water bottles, and they throw them, she collects them and then takes them back to the supermarkets, and she's paid some good money. So she used to, I think it is in Europe. So she used to travel around Europe whenever there were these huge events. And people are celebrating, taking sodas and juices and throwing the bottles. And her, she's busy collecting these bottles. And she was making a lot of money. Yeah? So I found it quite interesting. So at the end of the day, these technologies will help in building customer loyalty, improving productivity, as well as increase the service level. And those are some of the technologies that we've talked about. Artificial intelligence, by the way, is also another technology that is really widely being used. And maybe who can tell us in the supply chain, where can it fit, or how has it been utilized?
I think maybe during maybe product development, things to deal with branding and advertise, because these are some of the things that require you maybe to sit down, to use your intellectual abilities and thinking skills to see how you could come up with something attractive. So some of this AI technology comes in the sense that you try to input what exactly you want, and it will try to give you a picture of something attractive to the customers when it comes to branding and labeling.
Also, Doc, I'd say like in demand forecasting, because honestly, humans can't continue like analyzing that historical data and market trends. So it will like be easier to do the demand forecasting using AI and save time and optimize on the value chain and on the supply chain.
Yes, so it's able to actually ingest some large amount of data, and you can use it to analyze the data and even make some predictions. So for the supply and demand. And also when automating the inventory management, it has also been used in automating inventory management, and even the transactions, monitoring the transactions and delivery of these products. So you can read more on those technologies. Again, we talked about the 5G technology with a very high connectivity, and you are able to get real-time data and many others. So blockchain, IoT, we've talked about these. I think radio frequency identification, remember we mentioned it when we were going through some of the traceability technologies, and yeah, robots, 3D printing. So again, you can be able to assemble some of these complex information using the 3D printing devices, and make some decision out of it. So I think that is it, because I don't want us to dwell much on this, because the others we had talked about. So anything regarding or any clarification, anything that you wish to share with us before we move to the next slide?
Doctor, I had a question.
Yes.
And it's like general, like when we are talking about, especially now this course, all the examples should be like agricultural, or we are open to use like examples that are not agricultural, especially during the exam.
Of course, we should be a little bit biased, because we are talking of agribusiness. So the examples must be related to agriculture.
Purely.
It should be related to agriculture.
Okay.
So do you want to tell me that you can lack an example that is agricultural related?
Only that when it comes to like technology, most of these agricultural companies are only at the production and manufacturing level. The rest I just see they are so widely like outside agriculture.
If you read more, by the way, I've also shared an I think it is kind of publications there, several publications, and you will see how the technologies have been used, and you can also read more on how these technologies have been used in the agricultural sector.
Okay.
Because it will be good to give real examples in the agricultural sector. I know you can give examples related to the other industries, non-agricultural related industries. But if possible, it will be good to, at least relate these the sector.
Doc,
Yes, Sam.
I was just maybe asking about why you didn't talk about the advanced people actually adopting more of the renewable energies, even in agriculture. I don't know why you didn't talk about that.
Yes, that is why you are here, Sam. And I wanted you to shout about it. We cannot explore all of them. That's why I was asking if anybody is aware of. Sam, Can you go ahead and explain to these guys? Of course, the renewable energy, the green energy, and this energy sector.
Okay, I just know a little about that. Okay, you find that instead of using hydro-powered cold chains or any, at times they're now advocating for using solar-powered kind of power cold chains because they are quite reliable, unlike where hydro power anytime goes off. And then the perishable products can go back anytime.
Yeah, Doc, can I add on what Sama said?
Yes.
Yeah, most of the dairy farms that I've seen in my region, most of them are trying to embrace the biogas digester kind of installation. Because now I realize they have a lot of dung, and when it comes to leaving dung in exposure, it has a lot of a great impact to our climate, the release of methane and the like. So most of these farmers have tried to make use of this dung and make this biogas. And this biogas now serves a lot of purposes on the farm, especially when it comes to brooding in chicken, also running fridges, things like that.
I agree with you, because it's becoming costly, especially electricity, and that's why you find even the South Africans, they are struggling with this load shedding every now and then. So people are devising new ways of sources of energy, and I normally try to imagine if you are in a blackout for 4 hours or even 5 hours, and imagine you are even a processing industry and seriously need this energy. It will be costly to connect maybe to what is this energy, the one that is normally used, generator.
Yes.
Yes, generator can be very costly. So I don't know, Hanko, how are serious farmers surviving with this load shedding?
Doctor, to be
Because-
honest, they're not. The issue is at the moment, so many farmers have, I mean, they now put up solar panels and stuff to try and reduce the amount of diesel and stuff that they are utilizing. But the issue is just with the diesel prices and stuff that have gone up recently, they can't really afford to keep using their generators and so on because it's becoming too costly, which is why many people are now starting to look towards stuff. For example, the dairies are looking towards the biogas. Even though it's not as effective, it's more free than a generator. So it's most farmers are really struggling, or they're just changing the structure of their processes. So for example, where they would irrigate during the day, where they'd now just irrigate at night, should they not have load shedding throughout the evening. But with this constant on and off of our electricity, it's also damaging a lot of our equipment severely. So yeah, I don't know, any of the other South African students can also comment and share the experience, but I know by us, it's quite detrimental. Most of the farmers are experiencing quite a lot of stock theft because when the power goes off, the electrical fences around their properties also do, because the batteries that are in the actual, I want to say, control unit don't last as long as they used to, and yeah, it's just a mess.
Has that contributed to increased prices of the agricultural products?
Surprisingly, Doctor, farmers don't get as much money as they think they do. I mean, people go to the shop and you buy a steak and you've got to pay 90 Rand for the steak or $100 for the steak. But if you look at what the farmer ends up getting, he only got 30 Rand, 35 Rand for per kg for the animal. So farmers are, their income is staying constant, but their expenses are increasing. I mean, yeah, there was a decrease in the price when we went from 35 Rand 50 per kg for our calves to, I think the other day it was 31 Rand something, and the price is slowly going up again. But yeah, the farmers are having to now try and find a way to finance a lot more expenses than just their original expenses. But I'm sure the other students can also highlight that from their experience in South Africa.
Tabile. Nkosi. Okay, so I know people are trying to explore the other sources of energy. And by the way, biogas is, widely being used. When I visited the University of Hohenheim, they have a serious biogas plant, and they're actually supplying, electricity, power. They are supplying power to the neighborhoods, serious megawatts. And this is an opportunity that can be explored. We visited some local farmer here in Kenya who actually uses biogas for cooking, electricity, and virtually everything. And he was telling us that the energy is too much. Sometimes she just, switches on the gas to release some of the gas, because it is too much. And she only has about 3 cows, and whatever she's producing is more than enough. So I think it is workable. Most households can switch to even this, kind of energy. So good. So I think, can we take 5 minutes break and then we move to supply chain fragility?
Yes, please, Doctor.
5 minutes break, then let's move to the next topic. So it's 9:12, At least
Yes, Doctor.
by 9:18 we should be back. Okay. So are we back?
Yes,
Hello?
Dr.
We are there. Just share. So let's quickly move to supply chain fragility. And just give me a minute. There's some noise in the background. Can you hear some noise in the background?
No, doctor.
Miru? Sorry, I'm in the office. And you know, in the office, people walk in and out, especially when you are sharing. So let's look at supply chain fragility. We know that the supply chain network is a bit shaky. It's under a threat, has been weakened, and it is experiencing lots of challenges. And this has affected its maximum functionality. So, and an ideal supply chain scenario involves an agile system that is functional, and the different actors can get what they need at whatever time they demand for these products or services. But because of risks and uncertainties which have prevailed in our environments, this has increasingly impacted on these chains. And we find that there are certain unusual events that have taken place. And these events, of course, you cannot predict them precisely. And they have a greater impact. We've seen in the recent days what is happening to our economies. Just the other time we had COVID-19 that really shook the world. Before we were used to these, local diseases, or the in-country diseases, swine, Ebola, the SARS. Which other ones are you aware of? Uganda, I think you also had some pandemics.
Yeah, we had Ebola. We also had the nodding disease, the nodding syndrome, and also disturbed so much.
But they did not really impact the world the way COVID impacted the world.
Yes.
Yes. So all these have made supply chain to be fragile. So, and it is exposed to a number of risks. Besides that, the value chains have become a little bit sophisticated. And we know why these chains are sophisticated. People's demands and preferences are changing. Technology, emerging technologies, the population, increase, and even opening other markets, So, and all these, again, have made our supply chains to be kind of vulnerable. So, these chains are inherently exposed to the adverse events in our economy, the environment, the politics, and many other landscapes, the consumer landscape that is continuously changing, the structures that govern these chains or the governance systems and all that. So at the end of the day, you find that the chain is fragile. So what do we mean by the term fragile? You know, when something is fragile, you think of a glass, When you hear the term fragile, what comes into your mind is a glass. So what is fragility? Who can tell us what is fragility?
Dr. Fragility is just how susceptible the value chain is to, for example, disturbances and unforeseen risks.
Disturbances and unforeseen risks. What else?
I think, Prof, to add on what Uncle said, I feel like fragility is just the fact that in case of any disruption at any stage of the value chain, like the whole value chain system can be affected.
Yes, it can be weakened, or it can fail to operate in the right way. So something fragile is something that easily breakable. It can be easily destroyed or even threatened. It's very delicate. So you find that if a node within the chain maybe is exposed to some of these shocks that we are talking about, or is fragile, then the entire chain may not really perform as desired. So not unless these areas or these nodes are taken care of, so they are not exposed to some of these shocks. But of course, we cannot avoid these shocks. So they must adapt ways in which they can be anti-fragile, or they can be resilient to some of these shocks, because you cannot avoid climate change. It is there and it will always be there. Some of these economic changes, you cannot avoid them. The political changes, you cannot avoid them. So how do you respond to these shocks? That is what really matters. So it is important that we clearly understand how supply chains can respond to these disruptions and the kind of disruptions that supply chains are exposed to. So when you talk about the fragility, it means that our supply chains are exposed to a number of the shocks, and therefore they are weakened, and they can be easily damaged. Are we together? And they normally break down in the face of many shocks. And these shocks could be external or even internal shocks. Maybe if you can give us an example of an internal or an external shock. Of course, we've mentioned some of them: the environment, politics, the consumer landscapes. These are external. What about internal? Hello?
Yeah. So there is, I think operational risks would also be an internal shock, because sometimes when there is human error, especially when it comes to maybe manufacturing a product, and in case that product maybe does not conform maybe to the quality standards, that product is recalled from the market. So I think that human error could also be an operational risk.
Yes, human error is an operational risk. And that's why there are certain places that you cannot really afford to tolerate such kind of errors. Because if you make a mistake, you find that even the other sections of the system will be paralyzed or jeopardized. Any other internal disruption or shock?
I think
What about, yes?
Sorry, I think like for example, if maybe a manager was supposed to place an order for maybe raw materials, and then probably they didn't do it on the right time, then could create that lag. I feel like it's also under the operational risk, so I feel like it would also disrupt the chain, like at some point.
Yes, it will disrupt the chain because you're not able to avail the right order. What about the technology? And even the, incompetent staff.
Yeah, actually, Doctor, talking about competency, what about maybe a company suffers, maybe somebody who is highly valuable, who's a great asset to the company, maybe walking away, maybe from that company? Would that also affect the production operations?
Yes, and you've seen how some of these incompetent staff can also contribute to even operational quite a number. And it is important that as a firm, you must understand both the internal and the external shocks that you are exposed to that can even lead to the breakdown of the supply chain. We have got the climate change, the bad weather, even congestion in the transportation pipeline, technologies, and many others, labor disputes, the cyber attacks. All these are shocks that supply chains are exposed to. So this is a scenario. I know those who are in South Africa. Do you know Danny? Daniel Jordan,
Yes,
Dr.
Doc, actually, the one taking us through agricultural finance and risk management.
Yes, yes. So I think maybe at some point he will also mention this was his study. Not this one, the next one that I will share. And he has done a lot on fragility of supply chains. I also shared an article that he presented at a conference, and it's quite rich and has a lot of information. So when you find time, kindly go through that article. But then this is a scenario that happened in 2013, whereby there was a horse meat scandal. And I think the factory that was producing these frozen beef was an Irish food factory. So this factory was suspended after the tests revealed that horse DNA was present in the frozen beef burgers. So you can imagine what that contributed to the supply chain. So it affected the other nodes of the chain. Because after that announcement, of course, the sales went down. People are now not purchasing those products. So the sales dropped down. The meat processing plant was closed down immediately. they ordered the factory to be closed down. And then you can imagine the reputation of the main retailers. That was also affected. And consumers, can you continue consuming contaminated products? So they also, they were equally affected because their consuming habits changed. So they purchased less of these processed meat products. But then even the stores where the products were placed, they were ordered to remove all the processed that were labeled that came from the company. And all those activities were suspended. So they recalled some of these products from the supermarkets. So you can imagine just this scenario, how it impacted the entire supply chain. And I think there's one whereby the pig DNA was also, found. And yet you are claiming that this is, beef. So are you seeing the way the supply chain became fragile after that, scandal? I don't know whether it has ever happened in your countries. I know in Kenya, we've had issues with the oil, the cooking oil, like was it early this year? Some products were withdrawn from the shelves. The KEBS, Kenya Bureau of Standards, ordered some products from a particular factory to be withdrawn from the shelf because they did not meet the required standards. And of course, the moment a consumer hears about that, it also affects the purchasing habit. So this person will opt for a different product or brand. And that will also affect the retailers because they will now reduce the supply of those particular products. Any example or any scenario maybe from your countries?
Doctor, in South Africa, I can't remember how long ago it was. I think it was in 2018 or 2017. There was a listeriosis outbreak in a processing factory called Enterprise, especially in their highly processed meats, which ended up being a total recall for the entirety of South Africa. And their brand reputation to this day is still damaged, that a lot of people are still skeptical to buy meats from Enterprise.
Yes, so all those can expose these supply chains to, fragility. Remember during the COVID-19, do you think the supply chains were fragile during that time? During COVID-19?
Incredibly so, Doctor. Because, for example, in South Africa, all of our ports were closed. So we couldn't get our how can I say, our fresh fruit out. We couldn't get some of our other processed goods out. So that kind of, we were kind of stagnant, if I can call it that, because we couldn't get other imports in either. And I mean, it was like that for a month or two. And I mean, that was detrimental for many businesses. I mean, in South Africa currently, we are experiencing a very bad avian flu outbreak. Excuse me, at the current moment, almost I think it was 5 billion. Yeah, it was about 4.2 billion rands loss at the moment, just because of biosecurity issues. So businesses at the current moment, due to the nature of agriculture, there's inherent risk. And unfortunately, because of the way that our supply chains are structured in terms of their risk mitigation and their risk management systems, they are incredibly susceptible to what we call the domino effect, similar to the bullwhip effect, but the bullwhip effect was more the demand. But I mean, with this, the domino effect mainly highlights specifically how if one risk occurs, for example, the farmers have now got this outbreak and they have to cull their chickens, how that risk is now inherent and it goes straight through the whole production chain. There's very little chicken on the on the shelves in the stores. There's no
Right now,
eggs. The other businesses can't really bake because there's a very big shortage of eggs unless you have a private producer that isn't as big a scale as some of the other producers, but they uphold their biosecurity standards very well. So I mean, that's just one of them. Listeriosis, as Kate mentioned, was another. Foot and mouth disease is another. I mean, for how long our auctions were banned? We weren't even allowed to get any animals to an auction crawl. So COVID-19 was a big disruptor to our value chains, but at least we were still able to function. Most of the things that are currently happening in South Africa really have a debilitating impact because it's not just one chain that's being influenced, but multiple. And I think that's where
it was also a wake-up call, eh?
Yes, so obviously most of the work that Dr. Adan has done, because he's my supervisor, and now I'm also doing fragility of agribusinesses, or at least that's the focus I want to take for my master's, is, we see that there's so much inherent risk. And we see that some of the risk mitigation strategies that are currently implemented are very outdated in the sense that there's a singular risk mitigation in place for a singular risk. So it's a one-on-one ratio. But we know that most of our risks that we face, be it as a business, be it as a value chain, it is interlinked. There's a very big interconnection, and it's very much a multidimensional approach that's needed in order to really address risk in the current age. I mean, we've all been speaking, it's a hot topic now, the VUCA environment, the volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, complexity. Like there's so much going on, and businesses are now facing a decision whether they should, and many managers specifically are sitting in this decision where they are having to choose, do I chase profit or do I chase resilience? And at the current moment, that's a big thing that's also driving how fragile some chains are. I mean, we've heard in previous lectures, if we shorten the value chain by taking on more of the activities on our businesses, yes, it reduces transaction costs, but it also increases the amount of risk, but it also increases the amount of risk you can control. So yes, on the other side, it opens you up to more, but it also gives you more control of the whole system. So we've also seen that that's a very big contributing factor to businesses not necessarily wanting to prepare for the rainy day, as we call it, and to prepare accordingly for any unforeseen circumstances. And yeah, I think that's a very big issue at the moment. So that's
it
why
means you have to do a cost-benefit analysis at the end of the day, eh? The trade-off between the profits and the resilience, and all these risks,
Well, Doctor, I think the business environment is becoming more complex. We are not necessarily now just having to chase economies of scale for businesses to be able to survive. I think businesses are now being forced into an era where they have to start focusing on that. It's not even an option anymore, because if businesses are so fragile, if you've put all of your eggs in one basket and one little disruption comes along and you are forced to close, I mean, that's incredibly bad. And I think that's why it's something it's really necessary to investigate stuff like this, because is there something that can be done in terms of policy that can actually assist businesses or direct businesses to kind of indirectly nudge businesses to become resilient and put measures in place, not only for the sake of their own operations and for the people that they employ, but for the people that are dependent on them, both upstream and downstream in the supply chain.
Yes, so there's quite a lot that is ongoing, and this has really exposed our supply chains. Look at the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and how it has impacted on our supply chains. Look at the way dollar is behaving. Right now, life is very costly here in Kenya. I don't know whether it's the same. You even stop driving your car because the cost of fuel has skyrocketed. And when fuel increases, it's a triple effect. Definitely the cost of products, cost of production will also go up because of, it's a main input that is used or resource that is used. So all these factors that have been mentioned there, the food safety, the quality matters, logistic breakdowns, holdups, the disasters, the natural disasters, and the other time we also had locusts invaded, Kenya, and within a very short time they have brought down, acreage of land. The social political events that we've also witnessed, and some of these unexpected risks and legal as well as regulatory risks. I remember sometimes back, I think it was in the US, where the milk formula was also banned from the market. And there was an outcry, especially from mothers, because those products were not available on the shelves. And you can imagine kids who are used to a certain formula milk. So we must try to understand how we can do business in the midst of all these shocks. So then how can these challenges be addressed? Of course, it is important to be able to monitor some of the emerging risks that could, expose our supply chains, and then also use the data that is available to be able to determine or even predict some of the risks in the supply chains. But then we also need to utilize the technologies that we've been talking about, because those technologies can also help us identify these risks and even be able to respond to them faster and timely. But other than that, we've seen people even go for now the insurance, protections. Even farmers are now, taking up these insurance products, although it's still slowly, getting into the system. But in some parts of Kenya, we've seen the insurance products work. Is that clear? I know there are a few studies. If you interact with the Dan, he will tell you that there are a few studies that have been conducted in this area. Anko, you've said that this is your interest.
Yes, Doctor.
I'm sure you've started reading some articles and journals. How many have you come across on fragility?
So, Doctor, in the literature at the moment, it's not, fragility is not necessarily something that's very new. I think the big thing with fragility now is just, we've gone from supply chain resilience to supply chain vulnerability to supply chain risk management. It's just changed words, but ultimately it's still been there. There are a few articles that I've read in
There are
terms
very
of
few articles on fragility,
There's very few. But the moment you, for example, broaden it to supply chain vulnerability or supply chain risk mitigation or supply chain risk management, then you find a bit more articles. And I think there was one PhD that I read that spoke about how, for example, it's still the same concept, but it's just the words have been used interchangeably across literature.
Actually, they use fragility, risks, resilience.
Yes, those are many of the keywords that have been used quite interchangeably.
They are used interchangeably.
Yeah.
Great. So, and again, there are tools that can be used to measure the fragility, even though we know it's not easy to be able to get the right data, especially from the different actors within the chain. But it is important that data is well maintained and recorded, because this data can help you and understand whether your supply chain is fragile, is breakable, or whether it is anti-fragile, or and so on and so forth. So there are certain frameworks that have been used just to try and explain these concepts. That is the fragility, risk, resilience. And you can see some of the indices that have been used. And we know that fragility is a bit complex. It's a bit complex. And that's why you find that even the studies that have been undertaken in that area are still few. So this is an area that you can explore the way Hanko is interested in. But those are just some of the tools and the indices that have been geared towards measuring fragility, risk. If you want to measure fragility, you can, use the USAID Fragility Index. There is an Inclusive Transitions Framework, Global Peace Index. But you'll find that the kind of fragility that they are measuring is kind of general. But then we have the specific now, the agricultural fragility. And if you read Danny's and Kirsten framework for measuring fragility, and they undertook a study on the lamb value chain. And I saw they also have another one on the egg value chain. Hanko, have you read that one on the egg value chain?
Yes, doctor. So that study was conducted by one of the master's students under Dr. Jordan. And there are a few other fragility articles as well that Dr. Jordan has written. But all of them are on the UP Library website. I can't remember all of them off by heart at the moment, but there's quite a few.
Yeah, so maybe if you come across those other articles, you can also share, because I've only shared, I've shared one. I didn't share the other one, but the other one, I think you can search it and
All right.
download.
I will do that first.
Yes, but we must appreciate that it is not easy to, measure fragility, because different nodes of the supply chain, of course, are exposed to different risks. If you look at the production node, these guys are exposed to different risks that perhaps the consumers are exposed to, the retailers and the manufacturers are exposed to. So it means that the level of even fragility is different at the different nodes. So if you look, you try to analyze and compare data, you find that it is a bit complex, and even the way to be able to measure the different fragilities is not easy. So how do we measure agribusiness value chain fragility? So one is that disruption of one or more of the primary flows within the value chain, of course, can also impact on the other value chains, or the nodes within the value chains. And we know that the flow of resources that we had mentioned, that is information, financial resources, the flow of goods and services, again, exposes these value chains to certain risks and uncertainties. seen even people engage some, hacking of the systems. People hack even the system because they want to access some information, or they want to interfere with some information. So it is not easy. Some illegal activities also taking place within the chains. But then the soft elements such as trust, transparency, and the nature and quality of relationships in these chains really matter, because we know that trust is an institution, and therefore it can also help as we try to span through these chains. People need to be transparent. Whatever information they are sharing across must be valid information. Then also it's good to note that a measure of value chain fragility would inform the design, organization, governance, and management of value chains. So we are able to understand even the kind of governance system, whether it is contractual or relational, or whichever governance system that would work for you. And even the design of these networks are very important. So if your the supply chain is less fragile or highly fragile, then how do you go about it? Then an understanding of the unit of measurement. How do you measure? What kind of unit? And we've seen that these units could perhaps even vary across the chain at the different nodes of the chain. Then the other thing is you need to understand the impact of a fragile value chain. A fragile value chain, how will it impact on the productivity? How will it impact on even the costs and even the product flow, the sudden changes in demand, and so on and so forth, the margin, the profits. So margin share the reputation, again, level of trust, number of casualties or affected people or entities are also indicators of the impacts of adverse events. So for instance, how did COVID impact on the supply chain? What are some of the indicators that you can attach to the, to COVID pandemic? What are some of the indicators that perhaps if you want to understand the impact of COVID, the supply chain, what can be your dependent variable? Maybe in a nutshell. Hello? Assuming you were to undertake a study on the impact of COVID-19 or the influence of or the effect of COVID-19 on the supply chain, what are some of the variables or dependent variables that you would be interested in? Hello, are you guys there?
Yes, doctor.
How would you measure?
I'm trying to think of.
Yeah? Huh?
I'm trying to think of one. How these periodic health health inspections at the border posts. Now maybe like the delays in which had problems with delays of moving products to particular markets. So I think, can that one also be an indicator?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it could be an indicator.
What about, okay, I don't know, when you said variables now, I don't know if this one applies. When you say like the supply chain performance, like the changes we saw with the coming in of the use of stuff like the transportation costs. Also like this, there's in the advantage side, you have like the implementation of this faster, like home deliveries became like an on-time delivery performance. So I'd say like my dependent variable for us to conduct such a study, I'll go with supply chain performance.
Supply chain performance, and what will be the now specific indicators? You've talked about the cost, eh?
Yeah, I'll look at the cost, especially now that some of the costs were cut, given the, also I'll look at the inventory levels, like, okay, I don't know, because during COVID, with the people inside their houses, that I would look at the home deliveries, so, and their order fulfillment rate. Also, I'd look at were customers satisfied. Okay, personally, I would not focus on the negative side of COVID because I feel it had even its positive impact.
Even changes in demand, eh?
Yeah.
Changes in demand, the product quality, and so on and so forth. And that brings us to another debate, whether you think fragility and risk can be approached quantitatively or qualitatively. Do you think that fragility and risk can be approached quantitatively, or do you think they can be approached qualitatively? Because we know that there are other people who believe that they are measurable, and therefore you can use indicators such as the turnover of the business, the profit margins, the costs, because you can quantify them.
Doctor, so
but while
on the
others,
one,
yes.
sorry, on the one side, the big thing with fragility at the moment is it comes back down to the probability of occurrence and the impact of the event. But the issue is for each role player in the value chain, the probability of occurrence will be a bit different depending on obviously which level of production they are on in terms of processing and so on, and how susceptible they are to that risk. However, one thing that's really big in South Africa is the fact, or that's a big issue in South Africa, is the fact that we don't necessarily have a database with enough information in it. So at the current moment, in terms of the way that fragility is analyzed, even in Dr. Redan's study, is based off of, approaching stakeholders and asking them to complete a questionnaire. But even with that questionnaire, there is still some level of subjectivity revolved in their opinion, because you're asking them, what do you think would be the probability of occurrence versus the severity of the probability of occurrence of the event, the severity and the impact that the event has on your business, and they have to plot the graph for you. So I think that's a big, I want to say, issue at the moment, because yes, you can use other factors and indicators as have been mentioned, but at the moment, there are the indexes, the fragility indexes that have been developed. Yes, they can show you which factor is, I want to say, the one that causes the most fragility, or the one the business is the most fragile to. But there's no one way of properly quantifying the aspect of fragility, because each person is doing something different at the moment, all the way from plotting diagrams to developing indexes to developing what you call it, dynamic risk assessments. It's quite difficult to quantify this qualitatively or quantitatively. So yeah, I think it's just there's a setback.
Yes, I agree with you. It is subjective in nature. So the way people even perceive it is totally different. So you find that different people, of course, based on their perception and how they believe that they are exposed to this fragility will again inform the indicators of whether they are, fragile, or the system is fragile or it is anti-fragile. So, and I think that is why you find that even when it comes to measuring, there is no an agreeable way of measuring fragility. At the end of the day, people are just trying this and that. So maybe Hanko will be the first one to now guide us on the ideal way once he's through with his studies.
That's a lot of pressure, Doctor.
I don't know how you will manage it, but I know it's such a task.
Doctor, simply put, for my master's, I'm making use of 3 different methodologies. Firstly, is obviously the questionnaire-based one where I will be approaching relevant stakeholders, asking them for feedback. Then I'll obviously also go through the process of developing the index and drawing out those diagrams, especially in Dr. Adan's study as well, the fragility that shows you more or less which segment of all of the processes that happen throughout the business, where the fragility lies. Then I'll be making use of a dynamic risk assessment tool, as well as looking at how the interconnectedness of the risk, to try and really paint a nice picture from. We've seen that these are the aspects that businesses are really fragile to. From the dynamic risk assessment, specialists have been able to confirm this, that obviously specialize in risk management and risk mitigation. And from there, we'll then analyze the risk interconnectedness and how it all comes together, and then see what we can do from that going forward.
Okay. So I think let me stop at this point. It's 10:06. We'll be having some classes. So we will continue tomorrow from this slide. And then after tomorrow's, I think after we are done with this, then we'll move to the risks, which of course are closely related. So that we just finish up both fragility and risk management. So we agree that we shall have a makeup. Is it on Thursday?
Yes, Doctor, that was what we discussed last week.
Did we agree on the time?
No, we had not yet decided the time. We just mentioned last week that we have a semester test the morning of Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then you said that's fine, we could potentially do it afterwards.
Yeah, because I was to invite a guest lecturer to take you through, financing bits of the supply chain. And I was thinking to bring him on board on Thursday. So let me just confirm with him the ideal time. But you've indicated that afternoon would be ideal. So kindly let's post on the WhatsApp wall the suggestions. Then we can agree on the time.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day, and please go through the articles that I've shared on ClickUp.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, Doctor.
Okay, thanks.